Hi beautiful people, the world has upgraded me. So I realized that I had a Apple Watch which helps me see exactly what you see without me having to guess anything. It's a bit slow and crap and whatever, but it means that it might actually work properly this time. It's very slow. Okay guys, so this is an episode that I've been wanting to do for such a long time, and I'm really excited to do this. This episode is going to be all about my Cuba adventure. I recently did a whole Cuba series featuring 11 episodes on my Instagram, my YouTube and TikTok. And now that the whole series is finished, I'm excited to now go back and look at every single episode and review everything, and I have so much to say. So I've got the episodes here and we're going to start off with the first one.
I arrived in a country where money didn't make sense. So picture this, it's stupid o'clock in the morning at Cancun airport. We're going to Cuba, bitch! So they say that the food in Cuba is really bad, so having my last proper meal. Paperwork.
And thank God I did, because we'll get to that.
Done. Visa sorted. I get on the plane and babe, it's empty. 3 seats to myself. So obviously I do my face, stretch out and knock the fuck out.
So yeah, in hindsight, I would have known, okay, the reason that the plane was practically empty, I swear, like there was like 5 people on the flight. And I was like, oh wow. But now it makes sense. People don't tend to go to Cuba. People tend to want to leave Cuba. On my flight back from Cuba to Mexico, the flight was absolutely packed. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I absolutely love Cuba. I'm passionate about everything that I saw there. And that's why I dedicated so much time into making 11 episodes for a whole series. It's more about the situation that is currently going on in Cuba. So we'll get to that.
About an hour later, boom, Havana. The flight though, shaky as fuck. The girls in front of me were screaming. I was gripping the seat like, okay, Cuba, calm the fuck down.
This has been so turbulent. I'm not religious, but
we land immigration smooth. Eventually, I get my bag and I see a SIM card place. Just paid £50 for the internet, but I have internet.
So that was really surprising for me because I did not expect there to be internet. I'd spoken to a few friends before I went, and they told me that the way it works there, or the way it did used to work there, is that you'd buy like a card, and you would find all the locals would go to like a park, and for some reason there would be internet there, and people would use this ancient like card that's topped up with money in order to use the internet. And that was definitely true in some places in Cuba. But actually what I noticed is most people in Cuba actually do have internet and they do have access to the outside world. So I was really quite surprised that as soon as I landed in Cuba, at the airport, there was a SIM card place. However, I'm very happy that I went and I got it straight away. My instinct was correct. I was like, let's get this internet done. At least I've got internet straight away, because normally I'd be like, oh, okay, I can wait until I get into the city center. No, I never saw any SIM cards anywhere else in all of Cuba. So I'm really glad that I got it at the airport. And if you go to Cuba too, and you land in Havana airport, which is the main airport, I recommend just get the SIM card. It wasn't cheap. It was about £50, which is like, Alexa, what's £50 in US dollars?
£50 is about $67 and 95 cents.
So about 68 US dollars, and it was only like 5 gigabytes. So it was very expensive. That was quite a shock to me, but I just thought, okay, let's get this done.
Driver picks me up and takes me to my casa particular, a family home. Actually really cute. I'll show you around. Family kitchen. Family living room. And then I realized I fucked up.
All right, before we get there. So one of the things is in Cuba, all of Cuba, you'll notice that we stayed in family homes. And this is because of the communist kind of politics that there is in Cuba. There are very limited hotels and resorts. Some of them do exist, there are some, but the majority of those how do I say this? The majority of those would be in Havana. So if you went outside of Havana, you wouldn't really find any hotels or resorts. And also, we wanted to support the locals. I actually went with G Adventures, and G Adventures is very ethical for this kind of stuff, not just in Cuba, but all around the world. They always try their very best to support local businesses, local independent businesses, and that is one of the reasons why we ended up in these casa particulares, which it was basically to support local families and support local businesses rather than like a big government run hotel. That's another thing. So a lot of those hotels and resorts that do exist were actually run by the government, and that means that the money went directly to the government rather than to the local people.
I'm a bit stuck because there's no banks, apparently there's no ATMs. I arrived in Cuba with about $50 worth of Mexican pesos and vibes. But then after asking around, I met this guy on the street. He was happy to help me exchange some Mexican pesos into Cuban pesos, and suddenly I had enough to eat and survive the day. So I thought, fuck.
So yeah, that was a big stress for me when I arrived, and I guess I was very privileged because, I found somebody to exchange some money for me. But at the same time, I thought of a very different privileged mindset. I assumed that when I arrived in Cuba, I would be able to easily get some money from the ATM or go to any store and get cash. That was absolutely incorrect. Once you get to Cuba, there's no way of accessing money, basically. The only way of accessing money is by having money already with you. So if you're going to Cuba, you can carry pounds, dollars, or euros. And if you think strategically, for some reason, the exchange rate is the same in all three currencies. So I can't really remember, but I think it ended up being the dollar was actually the cheapest currency because you'd get the same value of the dollar to the pound. One thing I thought was absolutely crazy is that basically the black market runs everything. And that sounds really dodgy, but it's very open and everybody knows about it. Just like this guy on the street literally exchanged money for me. It was just done in the open. There was no like secrets about it. This is how Cuba runs. It's a cash-based economy because the people they do have bank accounts, but they don't want to put their money into the bank account because Cuban money is basically valueless. Inflation is insane. So a lot of people actually hoard on to dollars, pounds, and euros because they've retained their value. So once I figured out that problem and I got a bit of money, enough to survive for the day, I thought, fuck it, now I'm here, I'm gonna go enjoy. Tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow is future Jeffrey's problem to find cash. But for now, I'm just gonna enjoy myself because what's the point of being stressed out about the future? You know what I mean?
Fuck it, I explored Havana. The theatre was amazing, the tour guide was hilarious, telling me all about the history and literally organising a photo shoot for me everywhere. I'm telling you, on the balcony, on the rooftop, near the classic cars, in front of the Capitol. He was clearly queer and recommended me to go to Las Vegas Cabaret that night. But first I went to the Capitol, which was the only place that takes card, and my card actually worked.
So what I found is a lot of these government-run places would only take card, and they would only charge in US dollars. And this was mainly because that way the money stayed directly with the government. If they accepted cash, then there's possibilities for the money to go missing or for the money to go into the people's hands, or even for somebody to charge an inflated price in cash and then pocket some of the difference. I think that's why, not that the Cuban people are not trustworthy, because actually they are some of the most lovely, most genuine, most authentic people I've ever met in my life. But it's more as a way of the government keeping control.
And inside, absolute fucking luxury. Marble, gold, opulence. Look around, I'll show you.
This was shocking for me.
Then the evening comes round and I start searching to see where Las Vegas Cabaret was. It was about a 30-minute walk in the absolute darkness of Havana streets. Not gonna lie, it was fucking scary, but
It was really scary for me because it was quite dark. Like there's practically no electricity. People only, in Havana there was electricity, but people only use electricity when they really need it. So what you would see is that kids will be playing outside on the street, people will be chatting and things, but there's no lights. So it's quite intimidating and scary for somebody who is not from there. But even for somebody who goes anywhere in the world, you know, we're all taught one of the things is don't walk around at night by yourself. You know, and that was the first thing I did because I didn't really have a choice. And I thought, I'm not here to be scared. I'm going to Las Vegas Cabaret Bar. This is a gay bar. Cuba has a very high, like big gay visibility, like and trans and queer visibility. It was quite a surprise to me because I didn't expect it to be so queer friendly. But yeah, obviously I took some precautions. I didn't take anything valuable with me. The most valuable thing was my phone. But you know, I didn't walk around with any extra cash that I didn't need just in case something happened. But I'm going to tell you something, Cuba, especially Havana, or all of Cuba, is extremely safe. Even if you walk around at night, I had absolutely no problems. But you know, everybody has to exercise caution when they are in Cuba or in any country walking around at night.
I made it. And honestly, I had the best time. Met a hot guy, made out, and somehow got back home with him at about 3 a.m. Stick around for part 2 where I sort out my money properly and the tour actually starts.
So yeah, I actually pulled this guy. He was Colombian, and I was a bit worried because obviously I was going to take him back to mine. We noticed on the maps that we were right next to each other, basically in adjacent streets. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take him home, but I'm worried because it's a family home. So especially being a communist country, I don't know, they might be a bit homophobic. It was funny because as soon as we got there, the family were like, hey, have fun. They didn't mind. They was like, cool. Like, it was amazing. I just didn't expect that. You know, by contrast, I went to Florence and I'll talk about this in the future, in a future video, but I stayed at this like nuns, convent. I didn't realize, and then I pulled a guy, and when I got back, these nuns were looking at me with disgust. So like, obviously it's different because they were nuns, but like, I was just so surprised with how open-minded Cuban people are and how supportive they are towards literally everybody. So yeah, now I'm gonna find the second episode. Hi beautiful people, now we're gonna go through episode 2.
Right, motherfuckers, I woke up this morning and I had the luck of my actual life. I met 2 other tourists that were just finishing up their trip and heading to the airport, and they had loads of cash left over. I managed to do a transfer using VPN, and suddenly I had enough money for the rest of my Cuba trip.
VPN saved my life because honestly, when they say they've got Wi-Fi, so when you get the Cuba SIM card, that works for like Google and for like very basic things like maps. It does not work for any bank accounts or for anything like if you want to access or transfer money. No, it just blank. It says sorry, cannot connect. It's insane. But there is one place where it works, which is in the family casas. And obviously, honestly, the internet there was very primitive. Like it worked here, but it didn't work there. Like if I just moved, it stopped working. And you know, even then I tried to connect to do a bank transfer and it just wasn't working. And I'm so glad that I had VPN on my computer, on my phone, because it allowed me to go on and put myself in Mexico or the US, I can't remember which country I chose, and it allowed me to do a transfer. And these 2 ladies saved my life because the only alternative I could think of, I was on the phone to my mum, I was like, what do I do? Like, how can I fix this problem? And I honestly thought that the only solution I had was to fly back to Mexico and cancel the whole thing because I didn't have money. I mean, I had money in my bank account, but I had no money to be able to live. I was there for 16 or 17 days, and I was like, there's no way that I can literally be here for that amount of time without any money. And then these 2 ladies was like, oh, we're actually leaving today. We've got all this extra cash. We're happy to help you out. And I was like, oh, thank God. So yeah.
One massive problem solved. Thank fuck. First thing I do, hide all the cash in the safe because I'm not stupid. I have the saddest little breakfast. Right, now that money is sorted out, let's go enjoy Cuba, do you know what I mean? I go into this beautiful old fort, walking around, taking it all in, pretending I know history. Met these really lovely ladies. Next, one of the national museums. History, natural history, cultural, fuck knows. Loads of stuffed animals. Then
I mean, those museums were like untouched from the 1950s. Like, it was an interesting experience. I'm glad that I went.
I hear music. There's a parade going on, so obviously I follow it. A shop with a queue that just sells water and soap.
That was a surprise to me. So what you notice is that there's this little tick, right? And I'll put it somewhere on this video, of all the government run shops. And they were basically like, yeah, they're government run stores, but they only sold 1 or 2 items. And to be honest, this particular store, you'll see from this video, was actually really well stocked. I never saw any other stores this well stocked outside of Havana. And this store literally just sold soap and water. What is it? Yeah, water and soap. I just thought it was insane. And there was queues outside for it.
Like, that's all they sell. All different types of soap and water. You see, look. Artwork everywhere, people dancing, so much creativity and colours. I did buy a t-shirt because why not make it extremely obvious that I'm a tourist? I then spot these iconic old little
Just before that moves on, so the artwork in Cuba was unbelievable. I saw some beautiful artwork that I wish I could have afforded. The artwork was extremely expensive, and it was also very difficult to understand like the artist or anything about the artist. So I guess if I had lots of money, I would have bought one. There's one in particular that I remember, and we weren't allowed to take pictures or anything, and it was this massive one, and it basically had American dollars being put into a funnel. It was just amazing artwork, but these were going for like $5,000 or more. And that was just out of my budget, you know. I the whole trip I had like $700 or $800 spending money for 16 days, you know. So yeah, you know, yeah.
taxis and think, fuck it, it's time to live my Cuban fantasy. Matching t-shirt, matching car vibes. He drives me around Havana, gives me a cigar, shows me everything. Plaza de la Revolucion, the cigar factory. I'm full in my main character.
I love this.
But then he drops me back home and you really see it. Buildings falling apart, junk everywhere, whole parts of the city just crumbling because there's no money for maintenance. Back at the casa,
And that was the saddest thing, really. Like, Havana's beautiful, absolutely stunning. It's just that because of the sanctions and the lack of trade or ability to trade, people just couldn't get parts in. So something about these classical cars is they would say they are Chevrolet, or I can't remember the names of these cars. I'm not a car person. I mean, they're nice, but I don't know anything about them. And basically we were told, yeah, they're Chevrolet outside, inside it's a Honda. Because basically they can't get any parts in to fix anything, and anything that does come in is basically contraband. So like a pair of tires that would normally cost, I don't know, $100 would cost $3,000 because of the contraband, because of it being brought in illegally, because of having to go past customs, because of bribery, because of all of this. And it's insane because the people are just trying to survive, you know, and these sanctions really harm the people. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we need beer. And by we, I mean me. So I start walking and see this tiny little sign on the street that basically says beer. I ask this lady, she tells me to come follow her. There we go, we go into her house and she sells me some beers.
And that's basically also the black market. You know, these things weren't hidden away. They would be on the wall saying, we sell beer, we sell ice. Like the most random thing, we have oil, we have like the most random things that you wouldn't think, you know, that you think are just essentials. And this would be the black market. And actually by going into this black market, you're supporting these local people. Because if you go to a bodega by the government, they only accept US dollars and they only accept card. And it was just, the money went straight to the government. It went straight to the oppression of the people in a way. I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I don't this is complicated, and I think I'm going to comment on this at the end. But yeah, let's just continue with this.
Absolute angel. Later, we start the tour properly and we go and eat some proper Cuban food. Ropa vieja, which translates to old clothes. Now that I've officially...
To be honest, yeah, it was nothing special, that ropa vieja. It was nice, but it wasn't anything like wow. And again, I'm not here to criticize Cuba. I love Cuba, but it's all about the sanctions. It's all about their inability to trade. And all about what they can actually produce, like rum and cigars are built for exports. It's built to export. So anything that's actually like nice has been sent out, and anything left is basically Cuban survival food. This is probably like, I ate ropa vieja like 2 or 3 times, because everywhere else, even though that was the national dish of Cuba, you would find pizzas, because I guess that was like the easiest, not materials, what's the word? The easiest ingredients to find.
Officially got cash, I take my new friend on tour out. We grab a taxi because we can, and guess where we end up? Same gay bar as last night. So me, the guy I made out with the night before, and the new friend went to pop bottles and live it large in La Havana.
Con las putas
homosexuales de Cuba. Cuba is confusing, chaotic, beautiful, heartbreaking, and I'm fucking obsessed. Stick around for part 3. I spend 15 days in this motherfucker, and follow me for more chaos.
I actually spent a bit longer than that time. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say for that. I will actually add, when I took the classic Cuban card, they were expensive, like maybe cheap if we compare to the Western world. And I guess it's a bit of a haggling situation, because they have like cards to show the price, and they offer like, they're trying to sell you a 2-hour tour for $100. And I guess if I was dividing that with someone else, it'd be cool, but I just wanted the experience of driving around in one of those classic cars. I've always wanted to smoke a Cuban cigar in Havana with an open, a convertible car. I chose a car that had this flag that I was wearing, because I just thought it was funny and like it was cool. But I believe I negotiated down to like $30 or $40 for 1 hour. So yeah, I guess it's not too expensive, but it can be quite expensive if you consider the fact that I took about $700 or $800 with me. That's almost like not 10%, that's like 5% of my overall budget spent in one car ride. And we have to be very careful, because when the money runs out, the money's finished. There's no way of getting any money back out, if that makes sense. So yeah, okay, episode 3.
Alright motherfuckers, episode 3. We wake up late, obviously. Our tour guide takes us to this artist house called Fruchalandia.
I loved it.
And when I say artist house, I mean full on art universe. Bright colours, mosaics everywhere, weird sculptures, even a swimming pool. And honestly, it was giving Gandhi in Barcelona, but make it Cuban and slightly unhinged.
So again, this is one of those places where I loved the art, I loved it, I thought it was so cool. But again, then they had this room selling art, and it was like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, and it was just like, whoa! Like obviously art has its value. But I also thought, in Cuba, the average salary is anything between $20 to $40 per month. This kind of money is life-changing in Cuba. I'm not saying the artists don't deserve it, but it was very much a question of, where does that money go,
So much to look at, so much chaos. I loved it. After that, we jumped back into our private coach, and it's lunchtime. Ropa vieja, rice and 2 chips. Not 3, 2. But don't worry, we also got a salad. And then we arrive in Vinales. Vinales is a small town famous for cigars and tobacco farms. Instead of me waffling, I'll just show you how the guy explained it.
95% of flavor is concentrated here in the filler. I'm going to use this leaf as a rubber with the objective to keep the filler together and give a cigar a cylindrical shape. With one hand I'm going to roll, with the other one stretch the leaf. Roll and stretch. I'm going to use honey as a glue, my lady, that's why it tastes honey.
So yeah, they would use honey to glue it, which was quite a surprise for me. I didn't think about that. And for lots of different reasons. I guess honey is a easy ingredient for them to find because bees are natural and you don't need like mass production for that. But also it's what becomes trademark of the Cuba cigars. What I found interesting is also, you know, when you get a cigar, I've actually got one, give me a second. So this is an authentic Cuban cigar, and basically if you look at it, it's a bit flaky because the humidity in this country isn't great and I don't have a humidifier. But basically they would chop off one of the edges using a cutter thingy, a cigar cutter, and then they would I think they chop off both bits, yes, and then the edge that they are smoking from, they would dip in honey and then they'll smoke it, and it just gave the smoke, it just gave it a really nice taste, and it was something unexpected. I didn't think that that was authentic at all. I thought that maybe that was made up, but no, it's absolutely authentic. And I wouldn't say unique to cigars because I'm not sure enough about this you know, cigar industry, but it was just something really cool that I saw.
Simplemente you can touch it, don't worry. But it is a lot of humid inside, that's why. Very low, like.
And you can see that I dipped it in the honey myself.
Check into our family casa, drop our bags, and realize there's no electricity. But whatever, that's Cuba, baby.
So we're staying in this lady's house, and this is the bedrooms. It's cute. There's no electricity.
We got used to that pretty quickly. I mean, our tour guide did say, you know, outside of Havana, good luck, there's not going to be much electricity. So before we left Havana, he said if you've got power banks, if you've got anything like that, charge them up all the way because you might not have internet. Not internet, you might not have electricity. So also something that we did is because the electricity would just come on randomly and it would be limited, especially in Vinales or any other town outside of Havana. So what we did is we would end up leaving our power banks plugged into the wall practically all the time, because whenever the electricity came back, it would just start charging instantly. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny, it's sad, and that those power banks were never ever recharged fully because we never had electricity for long enough for the power banks to recharge. Isn't that insane?
All on a generator, that's why you can hear that sound. The generator. So we head out and find a place with a fire oven.
So generators are really expensive, and you'd only see like government run restaurants and hotels, or rich Cuban people or people with connections to the outside world. That's how a lot of Cubans survive, because they have friends in other countries that send them gifts. You can send Cuba gifts, you can send people anything you like, there's not a problem with that. It's just that the Cuban people don't have the ability to get these kind of things. They don't really have generators in the store to buy. And also the other problem is that Cuba had a lot of petrol shortages. So even with a generator, if they didn't have petrol to put into the generator, it wouldn't work.
And eat pizza in the dark, and honestly, it was perfect.
Thanks. We got drinks, so we're fine.
Stick around for episode 4, where I show you Vinales in the daylight, the farms, the views, and even more Cuban chaos.
So yeah, that's episode 3. Okay, ready for episode 4.
Alright motherfuckers, today I learned about how Cuba actually works, and trust me, it's wild. We start the day at around 10 AM. First stop, cricket ground. We walk around the town and the guy starts teaching us about the plants, the cacao, and how daily life still comes straight from the land.
Obviously.
Then things get really interesting.
They had a song that they would sing when they crushed the whatever it is. I can't remember now. But yeah.
interesting. He explains ration books.
So the name of the person who is the owner of the house, okay? And guys, the year in which this ration card was supposed to be used.
Basically, every household in Cuba has one, and every person's name is inside it. This book gives you the right to buy certain things at subsidized prices from the government. Rice, beans, sugar, chicken, oil, even cigars and rum. You collect it from your local bodega if they have stock.
So I have a lot to say about this. So everybody in Cuba has the right to certain essentials that are subsidized by the government. And the way it works, or it's supposed to work in theory, is that all the farmers, everybody who produces things, has to give about 90% of their produce to the government. The government will then use that produce to redistribute to the population, and any excess, if it has any excess, which it doesn't really, would export to bring money to the economy. And when I say subsidized prices, I mean really cheap. So you could be like but you'd be rationed. So like a person could have maybe, I don't know, 5 eggs. I'm making this up. I don't know exactly the amount, but it wouldn't be enough to last you a whole month. And also, if you look at the nature of like eggs and milk and dairy products, you know, they don't really last a month. Normally, like especially for example in the UK, in a lot of Europe, in I'm sure the US, and a lot of other countries, you can buy long life milk. So I've got some in my fridge where I've got this milk, and it's like not going to, it's now February, it's not going to expire until July, so I can have it. But you know, in Cuba there's a lack of these chemicals, I guess, or products that allow things to be long shelf, and that makes it more difficult. So that's how everybody survives through the black market. And one thing I found interesting is that cigars and rum are considered essentials, and that's due to the Cuban lifestyle, but it's also due to Cuba's biggest export being cigars and rum, and basically that's been added to as like a luxury item at a subsidized cost, and a lot of the bodegas wouldn't have enough stock. So if you get your ration book and you're supposed to pick up your stuff in the 1st of the month, people would be queuing up on the 30th or the 31st of the month before, because they know that it's going to run out halfway through the 1st, if that makes sense. So that's why in Cuba you would see a lot of queues, like in that soap and water place that I mentioned previously, because it would run out, and when it's out, you have to wait until next month.
Here's the thing, the ration isn't enough to last the whole month. So a lot of people are forced to use the black market just to survive.
I'm gonna buy beer, and this is how you buy the beer in the shop. Gracias.
Then we learnt something else. All the cows, all the cattle, all the farm animals are registered by the government. Farmers, including tobacco and rum producers, have to give around 90% of everything they produce to the state to export or to redistribute. Wild. After all of that, we stop for food. Let's say another emotionally average burger. I grab a can of Cristal, Cuba's national drink, and no...
So Cristal is Cuba's national drink, and it was actually quite nice. I really liked it. You can't really find it anywhere else, but apparently they do export it outside. I just haven't seen it anywhere in Europe or in the UK, or even in Mexico or South America or Central America. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say for that.
Notice a couple of very creative knockoff brands around. At this point, I exchange another wad of cash because money here makes 0 sense.
So to give you an idea, I actually talk about this here, but you saw that big wad of cash, that was like $50 US. Like, you'd get stacks of money, which basically are worthless, for as little as $50. It was insane.
Context, on the black market, £1, dollar or euro have the same value of roughly about 300 Cuban pesos. Then I try to top up my internet and I go...
So I found this really interesting. So basically, nobody would put their money in the bank, because when you put your money in the bank, a Cuban person, it would lose its value straight away. and Cuban people have two cards. They have a US dollar card and they have a Cuban pesos card. And basically, you would use I can't remember which way it is around, but you would use the Cuban pesos for some stores, and then you would use the dollars for other stores. Like you would use the Cuban pesos for the subsidized rations. I think this is it. So you would have, you know, out of your salary, you would have a certain amount put into your Cuban pesos, and that would be used for your rations. However, if it goes into your dollar bank, then what you can buy changes dramatically, because most of the government stores only accept dollars, and the prices were completely inflated. And actually there's an episode where I talk about that. Like there was a microwave for like $115, from like a microwave that looks like it's been used by everybody and their mums and their dogs, and it was $114. In today's market, in anywhere in Europe or probably the US, you can buy a microwave for, I don't know, $30 or $40. So yeah.
Go into one of the local telecom shops, and babes, they're still selling ancient phones like they were dropped just yesterday. Another mediocre pizza and headed back to the casa. Just a side note, soap isn't really a thing here. Instead, every bathroom has a mysterious bottle of some hydrochloric acid looking solution. Stick around for the next episode where I go to Playa Larga, learn how to make the legendary mojito, I get stung by hundreds of tiny little jellyfish, and we visit the Che Guevara mausoleum, honey.
So I thought that was crazy. Basically, soap is a luxury, especially outside of Havana. So in Havana, people are lucky because they have access to a soap and water shop, for example, which I thought was insane when I saw it. And then as soon as you go outside, soap is a luxury. You won't find that there. Just like you won't find toilet paper, just the most basic things. You wouldn't find them because they're seen as a luxury. Yeah, and if you did find them, it would be inflated. Like you want a soap, that would be like $8. It's insane for people who earn in between $20 and $40 a month to spend $8 on soap was insane. Oh, and the conclusion was that basically most people earn similar salaries in Cuba. This is part of the communist policy. You could be a doctor or you could be a cleaner, and you would earn very similar salaries and you'd have very similar lifestyles. However, people who worked with tourists were considered the rich Cubans because they had access to tips. So you'd see taxi drivers and our tour guide, they would be considered some of the richest people in Cuba because they would have access to us who would tip them or even send them, I don't know the words, send them gifts, remunitions? I can't remember, reparation? I don't know what the right word is. But yeah, it was insane. Please, if you like my channel, if you like my videos, please subscribe, please comment, please let me know any questions you have, and I'm here and happy to help. Love you all.